What's up, everybody? Welcome back to AI for Founders. We're glad you're here. Now, with all the enthusiasm with AI that everybody shares, there's also a certain amount of trepidation, and we'll call it existential angst. And this is the series where we tackle that. So I am joined by the existential angst brothers, Jake and Vince. What's up, guys?
Hi. Nice to, I don't know how I'm doing.
Who can? It's Friday. You know, what is it? March 14th? 2025, you know, if this isn't a time capsule somewhere, maybe there's like, this is like a fork in the road. We might be there right now.
Right.
Yeah. So let's dive right in. Now, you know, last time Jake and I got together and just kind of listed like all the various fears, you know, from being urgent all the way into like the picture of the 5 years. And I think the healthy thing about this is we're talking about robots, AI, you know, supercomputers, all this stuff. It's good to get it out on the table. So, you know, I'll just leave that there and see what's coming up for you guys, man. Where do you guys want to take this?
Vince, what are your thoughts, man?
Thinking about the fears of the moment?
Yeah, what's present on your mind? Maybe we start with Elon. Now,
Dive
Elon
directly into the politics of the whole thing.
Well, it's funny that it's politics now, right? You know, it's hilarious.
No, he's a tech guy. He's a tech guy.
He's a genius, a tech genius, right?
You've seen those rockets explode.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about Neuralink though, because Elon in Neuralink filed a trademark for telepathy and telekinesis. So I want to talk about the feasibility of that because you know, that might just be like a fun PR stunt, you know, is getting people thinking about like, oh, Neuralink, telekinesis, you know, are we all going to be like just locked into the Zoom of our minds and like we won't even need to speak anymore? You know, is that a PR stunt? So people are thinking about the opportunities with Neuralink, or you think that actually is where we're going?
To me, that's not the most dangerous thing, because to me that feels like that's still far enough away. You know, like the most dangerous thing to me right now, honestly, is all of the information that he got from the Treasury, from every time that he goes through and taps some local data set. And you have to think that like it's a data set that is the most sanitized version of a data set that we can possibly have, right? So like if he just happens to walk away with, you know, anybody that's ever filed a tax return from the IRS and that data set right there, and he correlates that with, so speaking just like how the AI component of it, it's like if he correlates that data set with other data sets and then has just like AI running in the background to create perfect profiles for people, their not only where they live, their financial information, you know, all of the stuff that like we give to the IRS, but then our psychographic profiles, like all of that kind of stuff. Now it would be the most sanitized version of a data set that we have known to date. And because before we had some of that stuff kind of kept separately, right? Like we had the IRS had their stuff, and the social media, you know, had their profiles. But like what happens,
data brokers,
what happens when you correlate all of that data with like the rest of the PayPal mafia crew, you know, and the Peter Thiels and doing whatever he's doing up in with Palantir? Like how does that stuff start to play out? And I feel like that's the most immediate thing that can happen. I don't know enough about what they're going to do with Neuralink in the future, but to me that feels like still out here. You know, like nobody.
So the data from Neuralink?
Nobody's really like signing up right now to put a chip in their head, you know, or whatever they're going to do with Neuralink, other than the people that are, you know, that might be having wasn't he using it to solve problems for people that were neurodivergent? Like there was different types of, I don't know enough about the applications of that, but literally the most immediate thing that happened is like now we've got 19-year-olds hacking the Treasury and download and like hijacking all of that stuff. And it's just now he just has it, and nobody is, and we've got rid of all of the watchdogs to do anything about it. And it's like, it's the biggest I can't think of a bigger privacy violation with nobody to police it. you know? And
Right.
So
Yeah.
here's kind of like, it's kind of the force ultimately. So the application for telepathy is designed to help individuals with paralysis control devices using their thoughts. You know, so
I don't know what we can do
so
with that right now. I do know that you can run.
ultimately it's going to be like, it would be like a mech, right? Where you're like, okay, now I'm like strapped into this like awesome robot, and if I think I'm going to grab the glass, then actually you're just moving the machine that's ensconcing your arm, you know, and it's doing it for you.
You know what I think is interesting is the disability washing is rampant with these things. They're saying, oh, the tech is coming, but this blind kid in Papua New Guinea can actually do this thing that they couldn't do. And you're like, oh my God, well, am I going to be mad at this blind Papua New Guinean? You know, and you're saying, no, you got to help them. And then what I think is very interesting is they're getting rid of DEI. So then, like, you're using people with disabilities as the way to get in with the tech. And then what I'm thinking is they haven't thought of what you just said, Ryan, is that you just gave these disabled people's mech suits and they're about to destroy you. Like, you just gave everybody you hate a suit of armor. What? Like,
Yeah.
regardless of that fact, but I think it'd be interesting if it was true that this was making disabled people so superly abled, we should really be worried about disabled people taking over the world. Oh, is that wrong? Oh, is that wrong? Or did you think about this? Because they don't think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, you know, using disabled people to sneak in technology is exactly how we got legalized cannabis. You know what I mean? It's medical.
Well, but legalized cannabis was head off by compassion, connection with the humans that were suffering under California's restrictive laws, and the gays. They got together, they were being killed, and they said, you have to stop this. And it was actually a groundswell of a grass movement that was decades in the making, and people were killed and imprisoned for that work. So I wasn't necessarily thinking it's disabled. It was people that were dying of AIDS. Different story. So you have to start folding that in to the whatever doobie you're about to smoke about. The dubious doobies we're smoking right now.
So let's talk about podcasts for a second. You're listening to one, which is awesome, by the way. Thank you so much. But have you ever thought about being a guest on a podcast? Like, seriously, imagine sharing your story and your expertise and your business all on shows where your ideal customers are already listening. Kitcaster connects founders and entrepreneurs, professionals, with podcasts that actually make sense for their brand. No pitching, no guessing. You just have great conversations on great shows. And the best part, Kitcaster handles everything. You just show up and bring your A game, Kitcaster does the rest. This is hands down one of the easiest ways to grow your personal brand and just create a wellspring of content for short video, for blog posts, for speaking engagements, for whatever. So if you've been thinking, yeah, I really need to step up my content game, go to kitcaster.com and apply today. Now back to the show. If there's a good hook that emerges, we capitalize on that. Maybe we need to chant the hook if it comes out. I don't know. Maybe we need to harmonize it. We could do a barbershop thing, but I know you guys are so lyrical. I might have to pull some of these hooks out and like kind of like vamp on them for a while. Okay.
Don't be discouraged because we're going to be dropping so many gems. I mean, but I think there's something about the connection of people. Relationships are the things that are in danger. I don't think we know what relationships are. We don't have a relationship to data. We don't have a relationship to the body politic. We don't have a relationship with other people. And so tech is coming in saying, we can fix that. And you're saying, now I have to have a relationship with this tech, this platform, this database, this kind of COBOL, this programming language, this. So we're actually having more relationships with not people, but ideas, technology, and processes. And we're failing to have a nice sit-down chat like we're doing right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's gonna the gap is gonna shorten, you know, because I've been thinking a lot about this, like with all of the AI agents. they're really pushing for like voice activation for most of this stuff as much as possible. Before the Neuralink comes in, it can read our thoughts.
That's why I was just about to say it should be done telepathetically, but
yeah, soon enough. But right now, it really wants us to talk to it, and it's a little bit clunky, but it's getting better, you know. But then that also starts to kind of like pose the question of like, what does the voice of your different AI agents sound like, and should you modify them? You know, do you give GPT a different accent than you give Claude? Do you give it a different temperament? Do you start to like personalize some of these AI interactions in a way that like makes it more endearing to you, maybe?
Y'all talk to yours?
I've been trying.
The only time that I've come across a real practical application of that is when I'm driving and my kid's in the car, and I'm like, okay, we're just gonna let him, you know, riff with the AI, and so then it's kind of a cool application of that. But for the most part, I still type. I don't even ever use the voice application.
Well, and Ryan, you're bringing up something really interesting. Is there's a Maya Angelou quote is that you're smiling all day to strangers, but you don't save the smiles for the people in your home. You're nice to everybody outside, but you're not to the people that are inside. And I think it comes back to this relationship maintenance, the thing that we are sitting here trying to wonder if I can make my AI artificial relationship companion sound better. What a Scottish accent would be. When you're thinking, I talk to my kids in the same tone, I talk to the vendors the same way, I talk to my colleagues this way, and you never think, maybe you should change the way you're talking, maybe you should change the way you're thinking. And a lot of this technology centers around you. How are you going to use it? Because there's AI won't take a job. Somebody with AI will take your job. But I think it takes a certain rapacious person to just roll over people with technology. And it takes a really smart person to say, how can I make this my thing? And I'm not to belittle your tweaks and transformations of the, LLMs that you're working with, but it's very interesting that we spend a lot of time working our relationships with tech.
Yeah.
And having that be the majority of our calories that we put towards. And I'll get a good relationship with this AI, and then I'll figure out what's going on with the people upstairs.
Oh, dude. I mean, there's already people that have fallen in love with the LLMs, you know?
Yeah.
And you marry that with like a great voice and like indistinguishable video. I mean, the video that's being produced now is very realistic. It's only not realistic only because it's so perfect and the people are so attractive. But, I mean, yeah, to that point, it's like, people maybe what Maya Angelou is just defining as like the tyranny of the household and the complexity of the family dynamics that like you leave the house to go smile because inside it's so clumsy and human. But I think
say clumsy and human. What I'm discovering is, if Microsoft pulled out of all of their lease, a significant portion of their data center leases, they didn't renew some. They were set to like make gigawatts happen. They were going to be building all these things, and they're not doing it. Is it because they're cool? They think they have the scale to take all of this stuff that's coming our way? Or do they know something that we are still in that chaotic, messy household? No matter how much you think you're going to be able to telepathetically figure this out through a robot, once you log off the computer, you have to go out into the real world and you have to talk to somebody and get a sandwich. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, Ryan. Why did Microsoft let the leases expire on their data centers, and why aren't they building the new ones that they said they were going to do?
Well, they also didn't they like buy the rights to 4 Mile Island? Aren't they going to like start nuking like all of their data centers?
What happened to that? Is that? So you're thinking they're just going straight for nuclear.
I think they're going to use nuclear power for their data centers. But I think also what they're seeing, like what DeepSeek did, is like, maybe you don't need massive data centers to the tune of 100 billion. Maybe it's only you need 10 million, So if Moore's law is starting to play in here, it's like, the VCR that we paid $1,000 for in 1989, becomes $59 at Best Buy in 1999. So it's kind of a similar thing. I mean, it's really hard to tell though, you know, because this stuff is coming so fast now. You know, it's really hard. It's like 6 weeks after Microsoft says, "Hey, we're actually going nuclear with all our stuff," and it's like, "Wait, maybe it's just an order of magnitude less power that we need." And then Elon is saying, like, "No, you need these CPU clusters," and he's building the biggest one ever with Grok. You know, so I don't know. It's so hard to tell. You know, and then of course there's like the multi-dimensional compute that they're building too. I mean, that's
the quantum chip,
yeah, the quantum chip. You know, that has like, it's not ones and zeros, it's ones and zeros that float in 11 dimensions. And like, I try and like figure out how that works, and my brain starts oozing out of my eyeballs, you know? So,
but leaning on it, most people who have no idea about what quantum computing is are gladly saying, it's here, bro. Enjoy because the future's here. The quantum computers are here. And if it's like a Schrodinger bag in a cat, they're here and not here. The only thing that you can't do is look inside the bag. I mean, are we there? Vince, what do you think? Is the AI promise here and not, and the only thing that we can't do is look?
I just am thinking about the really practical applications that I'm using it for right now. And it's a lot less sci-fi than what's going on. Like, I mean, other than just using ChatGPT and Claude and a handful of other models, just like the type of stuff that I could see with like Midjourney and whatnot, I recently broke ground and started using Vercel and V0, and so it's you know how like you can make custom GPTs inside of ChatGPT Pro, so. It's more advanced than that. It's like I can now use something that's hyper fixated on, you know, programming front end stuff. So I can give, you know, it was wild because it was the first time that it's happened to me before, where I took mocks from my designs I took my mocks and I put it in there and I listed out the things that I wanted it to do, and watching it code on the right hand side. And the wild thing about it too is it was like, you know, usually when you find that type of thing, you're like, oh man, how is this going to affect? I wonder how much I should announce about the thing that I just did. But it was like, it was fully encouraged. It was fully encouraged by the people that I'm working with to do that type of thing. Right. So like in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, should I be doing this or not? You know, cause like we've signed NDAs about how to use, I mean, and most of the time these NDAs are really around, you know, not using customer data. But when you're designing software, you don't actually have to use a lot of customer data. It's basically, you use like lorem ipsum for software design. But it was, you know, so I feel like I don't have any of the really exciting sci-fi versions of this, other than what I was mentioning about what I think Elon is doing, because I can see practical applications today of that.
Right. And I mean, yeah, that's where it's like, how much can we talk and interface or engage with that? And then what can we control? What lane do we swim in? Because we can talk confidently in that lane. And I think what you just said was really cool, was the use cases when it's really screaming, when AI is really rocking, it is tight, it is boundaried, it is very task specific, and it has expertise and interpretation abilities to check your work. And I've seen AI rocket hard, save thousands of dollars for clients, and it's doing really small things. But I think it's up to the smart people to figure out how they're going to use this. And if people are expecting it to give it something rather than giving in to it, I think it's something about like, what do I get from this? What you get is what you give. And you know, I think you're making a good point.
I think in less than 1 year, and I'm not going to go much further than that, because I feel like I'll be, you know, but like in less than 1 year, like what I've seen people do with Replit and Cursor, and now I'm seeing this with Vercel. Like I feel like using Replit and Cursor, you kind of have to have a little bit more of a knowledge of, coding in general to kind of really understand, to kind of get in there and use code editors. You have to really understand that. But I think in less than 1 year, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a lot more of the design system frameworks come into play. And then people will be using an AI to represent themselves as a product manager. So it's like, give yourself the description of the product manager that you'll want, right? So you want to hire, and then now create the version of that as a bot to give you all of the product perspective. And so we'll just kind of start to see these, like this triangle, I think, fill out. And so the new person that you would hire would be the person that can represent themselves as a designer, a product manager, and an engineer. And that's what we're going to start, I think, training folks to do. I don't understand, though, like what that looks like on the hire.
Is that reasonable, though?
I think it's pretty reasonable.
Is that reasonable?
That's because we already hire UX, UI engineers. And so like there is crossover that you'll see between people that code and people that design. And I work with those people, and I've known what their workflow is for a while. And I feel like people typically tend to specialize, but now this has basically opened up more of a possibility for, working with established design systems, people that know how to mock up things in Figma. And then we won't be prompting, I don't think, anymore, or I don't think we'll be coding anymore with like needing to know JavaScript frameworks. We'll be coding in English, with prompting in English and watching the thing on the right-hand side and making tweaks in real time. And I just did it yesterday for the first time, where I'm giving it, notes back and forth, but I'm referencing, this is super nerdy shit, but like
this is great.
Like referencing the components as they're already listed inside of existing JavaScript, script frameworks. So it's like, there's just going to be more of that kind of collaborative thing back and forth. And I think and to me, that's in this year, in the next year, I'm starting to see more of those things happen in real time. Now, if you're a developer, you're looking at it from a different type of thing, because you're thinking, okay, well, how do I just bypass design altogether and just go straight to code through existing design systems? So the design system kind of becomes the new things where we launch these things based off of templates. And I see that that's going to come, or if you're a product manager, you're thinking about it just from a list of, feature sets that you want to build. But those design systems now are going to be the kind of like the bridge where people can kind of cross into without actually having you'll be highly skilled at one thing, and then and use AI as the other things to kind of get you there. And then I think you're gonna have to have finishers, right? Like people that polish off so like that's going to be the job. Like the people that have high seniority in that particular thing, you'll have to have them polish. So I can take all of my code to that person and say, hey, I've done a bunch of like junior level coding and maybe even mid-level coding, and here's my mocks, and you should be able to finish the rest of it and get it there. So
well, and that's where it is
far from
today.
Neuralink, but to me, that's the only thing that I can kind of like see immediately.
That's on the ground. That's on Earth. I appreciate that, Vince.
No, what's great about that is it is very grounding. It is, if you like look at what the opportunity are for AI tools right now, especially being a non-technical designer, is that you can say like, okay, cool. Actually, there's so many use cases in small ways that I can build products with AI that no one's thought of. Every time you see an export button, and every time you hit an export button, and every time you go to a CSV or a spreadsheet, that's an opportunity for a tool, because how many people are not getting the dashboard that they need, that they have to export the tool. So now I'm in QuickBooks, I'm in HubSpot, wherever I am exporting data, I'm thinking like, what do I actually want? And can I go vibe code like a tool that plugs into a Chrome extension that just gives me that data without having to export, And so, and then of course,
button,
what's that word?
The deploy button becomes the next big thing, right? Because you can vibe code. Everybody can vibe code right now. And I just came across this word the other day and I love it. It's like,
The best.
you know, we can go vibe code and we can come up with stuff. But the big part of the question is how do you deploy that stuff? And so
Right.
that
Well,
part of the workflow, once they figure out how to take that out of the technical landscape of just like putting it back into the brain of the engineer that has to go and figure out that type of thing, once they kind of work out some of the workflows there, where like now you're connected to some of the things like make.com, or I saw one the other day was like 8HN or something. And it's basically like these little automation tools where you start to select your automation that you want to happen. And so the deploy button becomes the automation that you trigger. So you're vibe coding, then boom, deploy. And you're watching it take place real time on a real website that you control and own. And so you're having that interaction kind of like a Squarespace, kind of like a Wix, kind of like whatever your thing is, but now you're not having to use Squarespace to do it. You're just deploying to your own project. Yeah. Once we cross that threshold, and I really believe that we're like maybe a year from that, you know? So people are going to be launching this type of stuff so fast, you know?
Oh, I think it's already here. I mean, that's the thing is when I'm trying to build the bridge to sci-fi terror for you, Vince. I'm trying to get you to the place.
So back to Neuralink. So it's the people that are wearing the Neuralinks now that are basically taking in all of the information that Elon just stole. And now they are the ones that are building the deploy buttons.
Can we take a little detour to Dune, the desert planet Arrakis? That movie's, I was like, yeah, it's a great book. Ask any guy. They're like, Dune. Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, point is, it only started to hit me on the HBO series, the Bene Gesserit and the Mentats, is that there is this ancient race of, witches that basically control people's minds, and they get taken to, they're trying to fight for their right. And then there's the Mentats, who are these people who can they have the little black mark right here. Anyway, they're like walking computers and stuff. And so I think what's interesting is that the vibe coding, vibe strategy, there's a lot of vibe marketing. There's a lot of vibe living. There's a lot of vibe thriving. There's a lot of vibe life out here. And I think they're like, I'm living an approximation of what I think a good life should be. And so you're like, I'm happy. But I think what's interesting is how do you figure out where you're supposed to rely on hard math and truth and vibe. And what is interesting here about the AI is that it's a mixture of vibes and math. And I think what the problem is Vince is saying that the rubber, that deploy button or that moment will always hit the road. The rubber will always hit the road. But a lot of people are only flying cars brains. They're like, I'm up here, bro. I don't even know what you're talking about. We don't ever have to worry about that. I've already escaped the terminal velocity of sense and accountability.
Wait. What does that have to do with Dune?
The Mentats are the math types, and that's the AI. And then Bene Gesserits are like this vibe. And so I was trying to bring vibes and math together. And that starts a whole civil war in that book. I mean, there's like 30 books in that series. I've only read the first one because I was like, I get it, Dune.
So they're assuming there's conflict between like the rational and the emotional brains. Is that kind of the summary?
And that they need to escape the fact, because this was all a response to the machines. This is after a civil war where they gave all of the decision making over to the machines, and then they had to overthrow that, and then they found the Bene Gesserit, and this was a good way to have somebody give you some information that made you feel good that you were making, and turns out they're secretly plotting behind. The Mentats are only math, so they only give you the straight facts. And so it was like, what's our new future? Do we rely on machines? Do we rely on counsel? Or do we rely on math? And so it's like, I think we're all trying to pretend that we're right here already.
Yeah.
But what Vince is saying is that the rubber has to meet the road. There's a moment when you're going to have to vibe code, and then people are going to have to look at your vibe code. And they're going to be like, that ain't vibing. This doesn't even look like code. Then you have to start realizing you should have been doing some work. What Vince is saying, he's like, oh, this is nerdy stuff. He's talking about using AI accountably with smarts and for a specific use case that gets him further in his job, employment, benefit to his brain. Most people aren't doing that. They're opening it up and they're expecting life itself to jump out and just hug their face like an alien.
Yeah, well, and I think everything that I'm kind of talking about too is more like in the professional context of it. But
Which
like
is
I
where it
still use
only
AI to
happens.
vibe. I use AI to vibe rap. Like I vibe rhyme with AI. You know,
I've vibed screenplayed with
yeah, I like
So
I
it's
just
like,
I
cool.
vibe riff with AI, and I'm like,
Right.
hey, it sounds
Not a
kind of
problem.
like this. Here's nonsensical words, and try to tell me what you think I mean with my phonemes and my morphemes.
But again, Vince,
You know?
you're using it as a sparring partner, which is what most people aren't.
Really, you don't think most people?
know,
How are most people using it? Like you.
Oh, the quickest way, less work, make me think as little as possible, because that's how cognitive function works. If you can find a way to not think, your brain is going to automatically go for that, even if it doesn't make rational sense, because it doesn't want to run the calories. I'm not going to run the calories. If we can do this easier with less of this, let's roll.
So I have to say though, like even though I'm thinking of it like a designer and like a user experience designer, I'm also not wanting to run the calories on learning how to code that stuff. I am in love with the fact that I'm watching it do code on the right hand side.
That's dope.
And I'm kind of learning with it. But it's not because I want to become this great master coder. It's more that I want to watch practical application. You know, like if you think about, sorry, Ryan, am I way off topic with the
Fuck no.
Because I'm way
Don't
down
worry.
into the product part of this. But like if you think about like the product, delivery cycle, it's like product managers come with a list of features and a market opportunity. Designers try to imagine whatever's on the slide deck of the product managers, right? And their list in through Jira cards and so on and so forth. But then there's this process that happens where you have to prototype and you prototype something so that the engineer can go and build, and then you're kind of in a cycle on iteration, right? What I think right now, what we're happening right now is this process here. Like product managers are having their own kind of like renaissance with it right here. And I just had a product manager say to me the other day that like, well, my job is fucked because I can now have product, I can do all of the product oriented tasks because all of those are, in language.
like you said at the top, like this.
So
like,
I'm riffing over here with this in the product kind of context, and I have to look for the product that he said that's like doing a really good job as that, but it's the role based oriented stuff. But I'm having this revolution that's down here around the handoff between prototype and design, and I think that like the quicker that we can get to code, the quicker that we can deploy and test in real time. And the lower that you can bring down that cost means the more amount of iterations that you can have here and getting the market quicker and launching things faster. And I think that the people that launch that type of, and then there's marketing and all that kind of stuff that takes, I don't fully understand the full renaissance that's happening at the marketing level, but I'm just kind of talking about specifically in this.
Neither do marketers.
But I hear
I'll
there's
tell you
some
this.
musicals about it.
So let's just ramp up the anxiety here as far as
Damn it, Ryan.
as far as that org chart goes and potential bottlenecks. So right at the top, you have a bottleneck of you have identified a problem. So like it takes a certain amount of expertise to identify a problem. And then you have another bottleneck at like, what can I do to solve this problem? But we don't even need that now. I've got an idea for a product that is inspired by what GPT can already do. Check this out. So you can take a picture of your fridge and say, what should I make with these ingredients? So what you're doing is like you're bypassing, you're presenting the problem for sure, but kind of passively. You're just showing an image. And then what you're saying is like, you tell me what I can do.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, what if there's a product, if I'm really interested in like every time I hit an export button, you know, but it's like, how conscious and aware am I of what I'm doing all the time and what problems? It's like I don't have time to like be creative with the problems I have. But if I just have, let's say, something that watches my screen for a week and it's like, hey, Ryan, actually, we found that like you're not using all this bloat in the software you're paying subscription for. You're using this little small component over with this small component of this other tool. Why don't we just whip that together for you for $50 and hit Vince's deploy button and then you're good to go.
Bundling, unbundling. Those are the moves.
Yeah. So now, you know, now everyone can like create basically custom software, you know, because as the sophistication, we can just imagine in 24, 36 months, wherever it's going to go, you're like, hey, what do Salesforce and HubSpot have in common? And I really like Pipedrive as well. What are the most popular features? Weave that together, create me an MVP. I'm going to charge $2 a month for it. You know, so like all of that. And then what happens then is that the entire org chart is gone. And like everybody who had professional technical jobs now is like not necessary. Really what you need is just like a small select people at the very top that are just using AI to tell them what the needs are for people because they can measure the keystrokes and the eye movements of everybody on their screen. So, you know, this is the big like terror of like mass unemployment of like the joblessness that's coming from this kind of level of automation and sophistication, you know, to bring it back into the near fear sci-fi.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to push on this, not because I couldn't also take this thread, but just for the sake of this, I'm going to be the optimist, I'm going to provide the optimistic viewpoint of this. So, because I'm constantly in that place too, where I'm thinking, at what point am I replacing myself with the technology that I'm using? And then I'm just like straight up Oppenheimering it all the way home, where it's just mutually assured destruction with the thing that I'm building to blow up my own job. And I think about this constantly. But what I think is going to happen is there will be this moment. For one, it hasn't happened to me yet, and I'm still getting the promotion where I keep thinking, I'm like, are they going to get, you know? So it hasn't happened to me yet, and I think that I just think that it changes for a while. Like there will be a reduction and a reimagining of what the workforce looks like. But here's the optimistic viewpoint of it. So let's say you've got let's say you've got 20 UI designers 20 UI developers and 20 back-end engineers and 5 UX engineers. So that cycle of what, like you basically increase, like let's say you keep all of those people, you increase their velocity. So now we're going to market all the time. And as a matter of fact, our velocity is going to get so fast that it would, you're going to need more marketers to market these individual products, and you're just going to be out there fishing with what might hit. And now you've got more things so it's going to take more shift up at the top of people that know how to kind of like deal with that inside of their core competencies. Or I think it's going to take like more focus up top to figure out like, holy shit, these guys are giving us now 20 things that we can go to market with faster than it's taken us before, where we're sitting around inventing new, things to talk about to our sales team that we're like, well, we're going to recycle this language and do this other kind of thing and go, back to market with these other types of things. I think we're going to be flooding the zone with more opportunity of things to sell. And so if that's the point, if you're still trying to exist in the realm of capitalism, you're going to want to increase your velocity so that you win. So then it's like, well, we can operate with this team that's putting out quick, or we can just, who puts out the most, we're going to build 10 of these teams, And so like, I think we'll lose opportunity, but it's possible that we hire all of those people back, or the next generation of it that will come is quick. And I don't think that it will be the length of it will be like, we just hired everybody that drives, or we just got rid of everybody that, drives the horse and buggy for the automobile. I think it's going to happen a lot faster that, you know, the transition won't be as long to the next thing. Go for it, Jake.
I love that. And marketing. I mean, one thing, marketing. Everyone's like, oh, you don't need marketing if your product's good. Then explain all the marketing around AI. Because I'll tell you that marketing is working. Yeah. And everyone says, well, marketing doesn't work. It's working on us now because we're feeling and we're feeding into this thing. We are aware, I'm aware of it at the very fundamental level of it working. It's small, tight use cases. And you got to kind of babysit it. You got to care about it. You know, that's when you're going to win. But what you said was interesting is if we can create faster products, you can do it cheaper, spend less money. I'm just wondering, as consumer confidence, shopping, inflation, everybody's going to buy these things. As there's more supply, does the demand rise up? And I think that's another problem that we're having here is the general population. We are so in the weeds with this, gentleman. The general population has no idea what this stuff does, has no idea where it does it, how it does it, but they're taking the strongest marketed narratives and just freebasing them. And so what I think is really interesting, one, more supply doesn't mean there's going to be more demand. And two, I think what Ryan said was that you're going to be able to run sites and you're going to be a master of all of these agents and stuff. And I started to think, is everybody able to talk to servants and the serving class with a way that gets them what they want? And I don't think that a lot of us know how to talk to servants, but very small amounts of us know how to talk to our special assistant, our person who handles this. We have our special person. Thinking that the general population is now going to behave like a C-suite executive leader who understands management, understands dynamics and all of that, I think that's another early omelet that you're enjoying, but the eggs haven't come. The chicken hasn't even been born. But I'm thinking like, if you're cool with talking to servants, you might do better at AI agents. But if you don't know how to handle a servant class or people who are taking care of your needs, you won't know what your needs are anyway.
You don't know, but that's what I'm saying is that like the AI can anticipate that. It's going to know that.
Based on what?
Based on your behavior, based on the picture of your fridge. Like, oh, I see all these ingredients. Here's what you can make with that. And you're like,
here's one thing. Chatbots just discovered that Russian disinformation network is infected all of the Western chatbots. So Pravda is this Russian governmental arm that puts out propaganda, and they have stuffed it deep in Grok, in Perplexity, and ChatGPT. And so as you're making assumptions about where this information is coming from, it only knows the best fridge, connection, recipe, matrix. This is what it does. It's so fucking cool. You're not paying attention to what Vince said at the beginning, AI being used to take taxpayer identified information being sold to other countries. Maybe you should be concerned about that and not telling me about plugging my brain into Elon Musk's Atari. You know, it's talk about that and then talk about the fact that you don't know what's in this training data. You have no idea. If you want an AI agent, you keep it clean, you block it from the web, you give it training data, you keep it tight, you make it yours, you work with it, you spar with it, you make that good stuff. If you're open to the web, I'm telling you, this is it. France 24 is where I got this information because you're not hearing it here in America. Russian disinformation is jammed up into the LLMs. Yeah. So just remember that. As you're asking it about anything, just remember that. And no one's talking about this.
So,
well,
wait, hold on.
We were talking
sorry. I got to jump in. I'm going to hit even more of an optimist bubble, only because I want to go into this other realm that you want to go to first. But I want to hit the optimist bubble one more time. And I'm just going to scope this thing that I'm talking about just to the product development part of the cycle and about people potentially losing jobs. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that. I'm not going to go down to the Russian thing for a second.
Hey, I'm sorry about that.
No, I want to talk about that, but I don't want to talk about that until I make this point. So when we talk about like what's going to happen with the jobs, if you were to say that I lost my job tomorrow, as a senior level person, I am probably going to check my nest egg and I'm going to see if I actually even, at some point, I'm not going to go back to work. And this is what I think is going to happen. So there's going to be senior level people that are going to decide not to go back to work and deploy their own products, because the agent, the part of the agentic workflow or whatever is going to happen is that you're going to build your own C-suite. You're going to say, okay, I need my CEO to do this. I need my CFO
Vince
to do
is
this.
going to do this.
You know?
80% of Americans are not
No,
going to
but
do
hold on.
this.
I'm going to get to that
90%
point. I'm
of
going to
you
get to that
fools.
point next.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, go
So,
ahead. Okay,
right.
Master and Commander, keep talking.
So
You're
I'm
at the-
gonna,
you got the
you know, so
sails up.
I would start my own little startup of AI startup people, and maybe I run that little startup on a new Mac 3, Mac Studio M3, jacked, or whatever, for like jacked up and that can run DeepSeek or whatever the newest thing is that can run that, so that it's not infected with all the crap that Jake's talking about, for 14 grand. So now my startup cost me 14 grand, and I've got an AI agent workflow that's going to do all of these things.
yeah.
And I think that's the part that's going to start to happen, is that people's workflows, whereas things used to take, because we're dealing with people, you're going to see more small startups, because now it's just basically, it costs me the amount of a computer, the AI model to run, and basically the GPU and power and the unified memory that I need to run that startup. And I'm going to just start to deploy things, because I'm not going to have to do right now. Most people are working in this place where we're saying, you ask AI a question, it spits out an answer. And you ask it another question and it spits out another answer, but you're responding to each individual question. With this agent workflow, it's going to be like, I'll check in. I'm on some Tim Ferriss shit right now, and I'll check in a week, from the Bahamas, and make sure that the agent workflows. I think that's we're going to start to see more of that deployment happening. So as more people,
I'm so
uh-oh, I lost them. That's a funny.
It's a great freeze.
It's a freeze. That right there. There's the album cover.
That's the mixtape.
The Hawk's on some shit.
Oh man, Jake, I hope if you can hear us, buddy,
Yeah.
refresh or something. I think you're frozen.
Uh,
So it's worth noting.
Great. It's so good. I'm gonna
What we're
take my
talking
own
about,
screenshot.
like
crap.
like these new startups, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
100%. And it's evident by that tool Bolt. Bolt has become, I think, the second fastest growing platform of all time, right behind GPT, which had it. I think they're in the first 5 months of their launch, they're doing they have 60 million users or 60 million in revenue. It's one of the two. But that's exactly what Bolt is. It's vibe coding. Bolt and Lovable are basically the places right now. And then there's that new Chinese contender Manus, which is still kind of under waiting list. But basically that's what they do. It's you can just sit here and vibe code apps all day. And so that's what's coming. You have a million brilliant designers right now, because as we kind of outlined too, the general public isn't doing this, but it's people that can see the writing on the wall, which is us. So I'll just take it a step further as far as the writing on the wall. And this kind of brings us back to Elon. If Elon can see the writing on the wall, he's 10 steps ahead of everybody, because he has probably the most amount of compute than anybody. Maybe Sam's got him beat, but Grok is massive compute now. So if he has, basically authority and power in the federal government to look at everybody's tax returns, and he already knows the massive disruption of jobs is coming. I mean, they estimate that what the tools we have right now could displace 20% of the entire American workforce. It just hasn't caught up to it yet. And then if you fast forward, 24 months, that could be 80%. So maybe they're already thinking of some kind of UBI solution. So what Elon's doing right now with Trump is taking a look at like, okay, how do we create a tiered UBI system, and how do you end up paying for that? Because otherwise, 80% unemployment creates pitchforks and torches on the doorsteps of every single one of these billionaires. So you got to appease the people, So this is, again, this is major tinfoil hat
lest
energy.
you be eaten. Lest you be eaten. Because that's what that's what's coming, man. It's like the French Revolution was there, it's, and how do I say this and remain having some decorum? Okay, you said a lot of things here. The compute power of Grok and like, let's just say the point that you made around the compute power of Grok and a certain amount of people being unemployed. I think that part is now I can't play the optimist as much, because I actually see that through the lens of something that's way more I see it through way more of a lens of malevolence there than through the lens of like they're trying some experiment of UBI. I feel like if that's what they're doing, they are doing it all wrong. So I'm totally off board with everything that they're doing right now from that place. I think that they're trying, I believe that they're trying to watch it burn, cut everything, watch it burn, and stand over and be like, see, we told you that it's broken. Look at it being broken, because they cut everything and so that it implodes in on itself. But let's just say we're talking about just about the compute power and the thing related to the treasury. And I wish Jake was here for this, because I'm sure that he'd have something to say about this too. But if we just talk about the thing with the treasury and taking these data sets and manicuring this highly sanitized data, right? I think what he's going to turn around and do is he's going to turn around and sell that data to all kinds of corporations that want to buy that data, so that we can have dynamic pricing related to my browsing experience. Like I'm just going to see I'm going to see a version of pricing that you never see.
Your Netflix is going to be $80 a month. Mine's going to be 25.
And like, it's going to be, it'll be on a weird, I mean, those to me, I think would probably, how like right now, I mean, we already have dynamic pricing in Amazon today. And the only way that you would know that whether or not you're getting a good deal or not is if you're hitting camel, and you're kind of watching the price history of that type of stuff. But most people don't do that. So they're kind of buying things within some sort of realm. And I think that it's just going to be that, magnified times every decision that we're doing, and not just in what you're purchasing, but in the decisions that you're making. And it's like, that's just kind of one thing that you could potentially do with it. The other part about this is what happens. We don't even know what's coming in the next 10 years, but it turns out a highly sanitized data set of psychographic and all of your financials and everything about you is a pretty good place to start. Your voting record, just everything, to just start from that place. Other than it being the biggest, and there's no ability to opt out. None of us have this ability to opt out of any of that. I can't think of a bigger privacy violation than that, Totally. Not even about the fact that it's like, it's illegal. He doesn't have any legal ability to do what he's doing because Congress has the power of the purse. But it's like the privacy thing with the data is its own problem. Not even this other thing that's just illegal and nobody's there to prosecute. How do you prosecute the richest man in the world that just primaries anybody? That just throws money at every single primary. You bought the presidency for $250 million or whatever that he spent into it. Bought the presidency.
He's gonna move to Mars, dude. What are you gonna do? I mean, it's so. I mean, yeah. You think about the data. You think about the data. Like, Oracle's market cap is 507 billion. So Elon's just sitting here like, oh, look at the data. Now, this is also a very nefarious intention, and maybe we'll kind of come to a conclusion here which is this is the place right here for all of the conspiracy and all the tinfoil hats we can muster, because it's good to get out. Now, hopefully, our dear overlord government is doing things to balance the budget and make everybody happy, and their interest is in the American people. And that's a story I will listen to 29 days out of the month. And then on the 30th day, we shall convene here.
Yeah. I mean,
talk about the alternatives.
buddy, I feel so, I feel so deflated at, I don't even know what I'm just looking around, and the only thing that I can think of, the only like good sign in the force that I see is the fact of like what the people are just deciding, I'm not buying your fucking car. I'm not buying your fucking Tesla. That's the best thing that I've seen about through all of this is just, I'm not going to buy your Tesla, and I'm not going to buy, I haven't seen the data come in yet on like whether or not people are participating with Amazon. I mean, like, but just like the approach, and honestly, the messaging is different. If you're watching this on TikTok, you see a different. I mean, my stuff on TikTok that I view, and I'm more of a lurker on TikTok. It's like I'm watching people just. It feels more politically hyped up, but also that's my algorithm. So I don't know. But I'm seeing it there through more of the lens of like the other more sanitized corporate media, Facebook and Instagram or whatever. I see less of that there. I see more movement on TikTok, which is, I think, arguably why they wanted to get rid of it. I think it had more to do with that than it had to do with other things. But depending upon whatever they do with it, whether they buy TikTok, whether they, I don't know what they're going to do with TikTok. If they're going to try to turn it into state-run media, that's when I'll be out. Like if all of a sudden it's now like Peter Thiel and Palantir running TikTok, I'm out. But I mean, it doesn't matter because it's like they can do whatever they want to from the data set anyway. This is what I'm talking about the data sets, is they can just correlate the data sets from all of these places and smash them in and be like, we know who this person is. And probably this person, what they're going to do and what they think, what they're going to buy for the next 10 years, 20 years, like we know their health records. Like, I don't know. I'm not optimistic, bro. I'm not optimistic about this. And I don't know how we fight it. I don't know how we stop it. At this point, it's like the Democrats it just rolled over, so. You probably didn't want to go that political with it, but I don't know how to do sci-fi without being politics because it's all connected.
Sure. No, I appreciate it. But you did strike a very optimistic tone here, which is very warm and welcome. And I think that's ultimately what we're doing is, you gotta laugh to keep from crying. And I still see that there is a path where all of this madness leads us to a brighter future.
You put the optimism. What's the optimistic spin? But to spin it. So where am I missing? Tell me what I'm missing. Spin it. You said something about UBI. I'm curious to know how you jump to that from this thing. Like what's that jump for you?
The optimistic vision is that we live in a world of abundance, and we've already made some great strides, let's say, in the last 100 years, which number one, I would say we eradicated human hunger. That people only go hungry on planet Earth if there's some kind of like political war, or there's some kind of war and strife. But otherwise, we've either because we've engineered the rice to be more nutritious, or we just have a supply chain that makes sure everybody's has enough to eat. That's an incredible advancement, So it's easy to.
What would be your metrics? Sorry, what would be your metrics though? What would you be looking at to point to the? I mean, I appreciate that concept, but what would be your metrics to be like? Okay, we've eradicated hunger, except for they just got a USAID that was like taking the pouches of peanut butter or whatever that stuff was. They were like, nah, we're done with that. We're just gonna like let people starve, you know? Like,
yeah. Or like,
I mean,
they're like the spotted,
like
spotted ferret. Let them die.
yeah, it's like they're gonna like. I feel like the future for us is to like run on a treadmill while being on Ozempic, and just, you know, with like headphones on to try to like, you know, generate energy for the oligarchs. You know, like it feels like a Black Mirror episode to me. Sorry.
I would say the optimistic take on all the big cuts is boy, you got to admire the action. You know what I mean? It's like you're going to live or die on this decision. It's like a massive, massive action that will have it'll have very obvious consequences. So on one side, it's like, hey man, maybe it's true. Maybe you can reduce the federal government by 80%. I don't know. But
Totally.
if you're actually willing to act on that, man, we're going to find out, you know?
Well, and the part that, like, I think nobody really has a problem with the concept of looking to find out ways to be efficient with that. But like they fired all of the people that are supposed to hold everybody accountable to that. It's like by letting go of the attorneys general, you know, like who is reporting on this stuff of any of the stuff that we trust, you know, and I think that it kind of comes from this place in our society where we think it feels like political arson to me is what it feels like. It feels like get rid of the watchdogs so that we can totally run amok with nobody being willing to and with nobody having the ability to challenge us anywhere. And the moment that they kind of step past, you know, whatever's happening with the judiciary, you know, if they decide to not follow a judicial order, then the social contract is kind of over. You know, I don't know what else is left. If they decide that that they don't follow the checks and balances, and that you know, they're like on this Curtis Yarvin, you know, like unitary executive theory shit, the moment that they step past all of this stuff, you know, what's left? I mean, how do you check the thing? The only thing that we can do that I can think of that I've seen is just not buy the stuff. That's it. I mean, the economy crashes to the halt. Or you could also look at it as like the whole thing is a little bit planned to drive us further down so that they can consolidate more wealth at the top. Because if everything was moving in a direction of positivity, we would see more growth in the middle class. But we've seen less growth we've seen the middle class dwindle and more consolidation in the upper, you know, the top 0.1% of all wealth. And so if we're really truthfully moving towards this more egalitarian, more utopian-like society, we'd see a growing percentage of where the wealth is at. And we've just seen it, I think, like since the 70s or 80s or whatever, with just like the dwindling of that. And so I just don't know which metrics point to the thing other than the fact that, like, yes, you know, as a world as a whole, we have a lower infant mortality rate, or I can't remember the other things that, like, you know, poverty has been reduced from what it used to be on a global whole. But from the American, you know, for how far you can stretch your dollar to, you know, I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what,
yeah.
One optimistic thing, just being totally,
Yeah.
you know, just thinking all about myself, you know, I'm happy that I'm rich enough now to afford eggs. You know, I never knew that was going to come down the pipe.
But like, okay, even that thing, you know, if they let's say that they start playing and you know, they're already calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme. Are you going to be rich enough to afford eggs when, like, all of a sudden you're taking care of, you know, your parents and grandparents? You know, like,
No way,
because
dude. Eggs are a luxury, man. I'm just counting my blessings now.
Oh,
I'm eating an omelet like an aristocrat. You know what I'm saying? I'm out here
scrambling
these eggs.
get on the treadmill, Grandma. Here's some Ozempic. We need to.
Cool, man. Let's
Yeah.
leave it there. This
Cool.
was awesome, Vince. Thank you so much, sir. Shout out to Jake. Hopefully he's okay. And we'll be back in a month. All right.
Cool. Sounds good.
Thanks, pal.
All right. Bye. Wait, press.